I run a small, quiet cafe on the edge of town. It's the kind of place where the hours move gently, where time slows down, and the world outside seems distant. Soft jazz plays quietly in the background, mingling with the warm aroma of freshly ground coffee beans and baked pastries. The walls are lined with old photographs, and the wooden tables bear the marks of countless conversations, laughs shared, secrets whispered, and quiet moments of solitude. Most days, regulars come in to find a familiar face, a friendly nod, or a quick chat over their favorite cup. They settle into their usual spots by the window or near the fireplace, finding comfort in the routine of this little haven. The doorbell's gentle chime is a soothing rhythm to the day. Nothing strange ever happened here. No surprises, no oddities, just a steady flow of life and coffee. That was, until a peculiar man began to visit every day. He appeared suddenly, like a shadow slipping through the door, and his presence brought a subtle shift in the atmosphere, something unspoken, almost invisible, but unmistakably unsettling. The first time he came in, it was just another slow afternoon in the cafe. The usual mix of students typing quietly, an elderly couple sharing tea, and a few people stopping in for a quick caffeine fix. The door jingled as he entered, a soft, but deliberate chime, and I glanced up from behind the counter. He was dressed in a pale gray coat, buttoned all the way up, even though it wasn't cold outside. His dark hair was neatly combed back, and he carried an old, worn briefcase, the leather cracked at the corners as if it had seen years of use. He walked over to the counter without saying a word. His expression was polite, calm, almost serene. I greeted him with my usual smile and asked what he'd like. "Black coffee," he said quietly, his voice low and even, almost rehearsed. No hint of accent, no inflection, just flat and soft. I nodded and set to work, brewing the darkest roast we had. He took the small cup, nodded his thanks, and moved to the corner table by the window. There, he sat perfectly still for what felt like hours. Not reading, not talking, not even looking at his phone, just staring out the window at the street beyond. The rain started while he was there, drumming softly against the glass, but he didn't flinch. When he finally left, he gave me a small nod, and the bell jingled again behind him. I thought little of it at the time. The next day, however, was different. He returned at the same time, same coat, same briefcase, same quiet demeanor. But there was something off about him. His face looked slightly different. I couldn't put my finger on it at first, but as I squinted, I noticed his eyes seemed closer together than yesterday. His nose looked shifted just a tiny bit to the right, as if his features had been subtly rearranged overnight. Maybe it was just bad lighting, I told myself. Maybe my eyes were playing tricks. Still, I found it unnerving. Each day after that, the man kept coming back. Always ordering black coffee, never more than one cup. He sat silently, gazing out the window like he was watching something only he could see. But with every visit, his face changed more noticeably. His jawline became sharper, almost unnaturally so. His lips thinned until they looked almost paper-thin, stretched tight over his teeth. One morning, I noticed he had no eyebrows at all, just smooth skin where they should have been. The next day, his ears seemed to be lower on his head, closer to his jaw. But no matter how much his face shifted, his voice stayed the same, soft, calm, flat, and devoid of emotion. He never made conversation. He only said what he needed to order and thanked me politely before resuming his silent vigil out the window. At first, I told myself I was imagining it. Maybe I was tired, maybe my brain was tricking me because the man was strange and out of place. But the changes were too consistent to ignore. I even started photographing him on my phone during his visits, intending to compare the pictures later. When I looked at the images side by side, my heart skipped a beat. The photos clearly showed the changes, his features warping, shifting subtly but undeniably. One night, after closing, curiosity got the better of me. I pulled up the security footage to watch his visit in real time. I wanted to see if the man's face was just distorted in my memory or if the camera could catch something odd. I fast-forwarded to the hour he arrived and watched the grainy footage carefully. At first, he appeared normal. But as he stood at the counter, placing his order, his face began to blur and ripple like heat waves over asphalt on a summer day. The eyes slid closer together, the nose shifted, the jaw sharpened, and the lips thinned, all unfolding in a slow, unsettling transformation. Even on tape, his face was never stable. I froze the frame and zoomed in. It wasn't just a camera glitch. His face was literally shifting. The next day, I told my coworker Anna about it, hoping she would confirm what I was seeing. But she looked at me with confusion. "What man?" she asked, brows furrowed. "I don't remember anyone like that coming in. Are you sure you're okay?" I described him. The pale coat, the briefcase, the silent demeanor. Anna shook her head. "No, I don't think anyone like that has been here. Maybe you imagined it." I showed her the photos. I even replayed the security footage. She watched quietly, face pale and lips tight, but still insisted she didn't remember the man. "Maybe it's some sort of prank or glitch," she suggested hesitantly. But the strange man kept coming back every day. Every afternoon at the same time. The same black coffee. The same unsettling silence. The empty cup was always on the table when he left, the chair still warm, like someone had just gotten up. But no one else seemed to notice him. Sometimes I wondered if the man was a ghost. Or something worse. Over the next few weeks, my life began to unravel. I found myself distracted at work, unable to focus except when the man was in the cafe. His presence pulled at my attention like a strange magnet. I started dreading 4:30 p.m., the time he always appeared, and after he left, the lingering feeling in the air was like a cold weight pressing down on my chest. I couldn't shake the image of his shifting face. At night, I had strange dreams, visions of faces twisting and melting, black eyes staring from the darkness, whispering words I couldn't understand. One rainy evening, unable to take it anymore, I approached the man. I asked him softly, "Have we met before?" He looked up slowly, and I froze. His eyes were completely black, no whites, no reflection, just endless darkness. "You've been forgetting," he whispered, voice low and haunting. "But I remember everything." Then he smiled. Not a normal smile. It stretched too wide, teeth sharp and glinting unnaturally in the dim light. It was a smile that promised something terrible. I stepped back, heart pounding. When I looked again, the seat was empty. After that night, everything shifted. The cafe no longer felt like my sanctuary. The walls seemed thinner, as if the space itself was listening. The soft jazz no longer soothed but whispered in strange melodies I couldn't place. Even the scent of coffee felt heavier, bitter with something unspoken. The man stopped coming for 3 days. At first, I was relieved. The oppressive weight lifted, and the quiet normalcy returned. But then I began to notice the empty cup, black coffee, no cream, no sugar, left waiting for him on the corner table every afternoon at 4:30 sharp. It was as if he'd been here, but vanished before anyone else arrived. Sometimes, the chair was still warm. I tried to convince myself it was a prank, maybe one of the regulars messing with me, trying to freak me out. But no one admitted to it. No one sat there. And no one else noticed the cup. I started watching the clock more than usual, dreading the arrival time, not knowing if he would appear, or worse, if something else would. Then, on the 4th day after he stopped coming, strange things began happening. It started small. The first time, I was wiping down the counter late at night when I noticed a soft tapping. I looked around, the cafe was empty, but the tapping continued. It sounded like fingernails lightly drumming on wood, slow and deliberate, coming from the corner by the window seat. I forced myself to approach, heart thudding, and saw nothing but the empty table and chair. As I turned to leave, a faint cold breath brushed past my neck, making the hairs stand on end. I spun around, but no one was there. The tapping stopped. The next day, I found the cafe door slightly ajar when I arrived in the morning. I was sure I had locked it the night before. Inside, everything seemed normal at first glance, but the chair by the window seat was pushed back a little, as if someone had sat there recently. On the table was the usual black coffee cup. Except it was half full. I stared at it, heart pounding. Who had been here? The cafe was locked all night. I picked up the cup, hands trembling. The coffee was cold and bitter, but there was something else, a faint metallic taste that lingered on my tongue when I took a sip. Suddenly, the lights flickered. The jazz music warped, slowing down until the notes stretched and cracked like glass breaking. I dropped the cup. It shattered on the floor. The cafe went silent. From that day on, the occurrences grew worse. Objects moved by themselves, the sugar jar sliding off the counter, chairs scraping back with no one in them. Shadows shifted in the corners of my vision, disappearing when I looked directly. And that black coffee cup. It appeared at the window table every single day at 4:30, sometimes full, sometimes empty, sometimes spilled across the table. One evening, I stayed late, determined to catch whatever was happening. At 4:30 sharp, the door creaked open slowly. The man stepped in. But something was terribly wrong. His pale coat was tattered and soaked with rain, though the night was dry. His face shifted before my eyes, not subtly this time, but violently. His features melted and reformed, as if his skin were liquid. His eyes were no longer black, but endless voids, swirling darkness that sucked in the light. His mouth stretched into a horrific grin, too wide for a human face. He didn't speak. He didn't order coffee. He only walked slowly to the window seat, sat down, and stared out at nothing. Frozen, I watched as the room grew colder. My breath came out in visible puffs. The jazz music warped into a distorted, low hum, vibrating through the floor. Suddenly, I felt a sharp pressure in my chest, like invisible hands squeezing. I tried to move, but my feet were rooted. The man turned his head toward me, eyes boring deep into mine. His lips parted, and I heard a whisper that wasn't quite a word but a memory. Remember? Then the lights went out. When they flickered back on, the man was gone. But the chair was pushed back. The black coffee cup sat empty on the table. And I was shaking uncontrollably. 4 days after, I avoided the cafe. But the cup followed me. I found it on my doorstep one morning, filled with cold, black coffee. I threw it away. But the next day, it was back. I began to question my sanity. Was I losing my mind? Was the man real, or just a shadow of my own fear? I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that shifting face. Every time I opened them, I felt watched. I started noticing other things. Names scratched into the wood of the tables, names I didn't recognize. Messages faintly written on the steamed-up windows after closing, words like "forget me" and "you're next." Footsteps echoing in the empty back room. One night, desperate for answers, I stayed past midnight. At 12 o'clock, the cafe door opened again. But this time, it wasn't him. It was me. Or at least, it looked like me. But the reflection was wrong. My face was distorted. Eyes too close. Mouth stretched into a grin. The reflection reached out and whispered, "You're forgetting." I screamed and stumbled back. The door slammed shut. I knew then this wasn't just a man. This was something that wanted to replace me, to slip into my life, wear my face. And I was running out of time. The cafe no longer felt like mine. It was a trap. And the black coffee cup, the daily ritual, was a countdown. I've been trying to fight it. But every time I look in the mirror, I see the man's smile creeping onto my face. And every day, the face I see in the window is less mine and more his. The days that followed the reflection incident were the darkest I'd ever known. I avoided mirrors, windows, and anything that showed my face. But sometimes, despite my efforts, I'd catch a glimpse, a flicker of something wrong. One morning, I woke up on the floor of my small apartment. The alarm had never gone off. My head throbbed, and the taste of bitter coffee lingered on my tongue, though I hadn't touched a drop. A cold sweat clung to my skin. When I looked in the bathroom mirror, I saw it, the eyes were too close. The mouth stretched slightly wider than normal. My own face was warping, as if the strange man's presence was bleeding into me, erasing the line between us. Panic surged, but the more I fought, the worse it got. At the cafe, the usual customers started noticing. Some whispered among themselves about the change in me. I could feel their eyes, suspicious and worried, as if they could see through the thin veil I wore. Anna confronted me one day after my hands trembled while pouring coffee. "Are you okay?" she asked, eyes searching mine. "I'm fine," I lied. But I wasn't. That night, the whispers began. At first, I thought they were in my head. Soft voices, half-heard, calling my name. But then I heard them when I wasn't alone. While closing up, the cafe's quiet was pierced by distant, echoing voices. I spun around. No one. Just shadows stretching in the dim light. The door rattled. The black coffee cup was on the counter. Filled. Steaming. I reached for it. A cold hand gripped my wrist. I screamed, but no one was there. The voices grew louder, overlapping in an unintelligible chant. Remember, forget. Sleep deserted me. I wandered the cafe in a daze, haunted by shifting faces in the reflections. Each window showed a different version of me. Some smiling, some snarling. Some with hollow eyes. I didn't know which was real. One night, desperate for answers, I opened the briefcase the man left behind on the table one day, forgotten, or maybe left deliberately. Inside were old photographs, yellowed with age, but each showed a man standing outside the cafe. Always the same spot near the window, always alone. But as I flipped through, the images changed. The man's face melted, twisted, shifted. And in the final photo, it was mine. But I wasn't smiling. I was frozen in terror. The realization hit me like a blow. He wasn't just visiting. He was taking over, eating away at who I was, replacing me piece by piece, and I was powerless to stop it. Days later, I found myself talking aloud to the man, though he never responded. "I don't want to lose myself," I whispered. But the man's grin only grew wider in my mind's eye, and I began to see more faces, faces of people who had vanished from the town, missing for years, all linked to this cafe. All whose empty chairs waited silently for him. The walls seemed to close in. The coffee tasted bitter and metallic. I saw him everywhere, in the steam rising from the cup, in the distorted reflections, in the shadows cast by the street lamps. The line between reality and nightmare blurred. On the seventh night, I resolved to end it. I would confront the entity that haunted my life. At 4:30 p.m., I sat at the window table, waiting. The cafe grew cold. The jazz music warped into a chilling melody. Then he appeared. The man, but not quite. His face was a grotesque mask of shifting features, eyes like black voids sucking in light. His smile was impossibly wide. "I'm you," he whispered, voice like dry leaves rustling. "You have been forgetting who you are." "But I remember." I stood, trembling. "Who are you?" I demanded. He laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "I am the shadow behind your face. The whisper in your silence. The cup you can never empty. I am what you fear. What you try to forget." I tried to run, but the room twisted. Walls stretched, floors rippled like water. The reflection in the window shattered. From the shards emerged not just one face, but hundreds. Faces of those swallowed by the cafe's dark history. Each staring with empty, accusing eyes. The man's voice echoed in the chaos. "You cannot escape. You belong to me now. Your face will shift. Your mind will bend. And the cup will never be empty." I woke up outside the cafe. Dawn was breaking. My head was pounding. My coat was wet. The briefcase was gone. But the black coffee cup sat beside me, full. I looked down, heart pounding. Inside, the coffee was steaming. But I didn't want it. I didn't want to belong. I tried to walk away. But every step took me back. Back to the door. Back to the window seat. Back to the shifting face. No one else saw the man anymore. The customers came and went. But the chair at the window remained empty. The cup stayed full. Waiting. Watching. And sometimes, when I look in the mirror, I catch a glimpse. A smile not quite mine. Eyes too close together. The whisper of a voice that says, "You are forgetting." And I remember,